Oh
Stefon
my
Diggs
God!
signed with
Did
the
you see how much
Patriots.
money Diggs got?
69 million, 26 million guaranteed. Here's, my take on this is they made two big overpays. Stefon Diggs and
Milton
Williams, the
Williams.
defensive tackle from Philadelphia. Yeah, both are paid double what they're worth. They had the most cap space. So in both instances, that's what the market bears. I wouldn't have paid for Stefon Diggs, although I do think now he's probably a very capable two. I think what Mike Vrabel, I have a theory on Vrabel. So Vrabel knows what cost him his job in Tennessee. He lost A.J. Brown. And he walked into New England. However you lose your job at a previous employer, that will be your first solve at your next job. Yeah. And his take is, okay, I can figure out the line play, the culture, the intelligence. I can't have a team that can't throw the ball down the field. So they're going to draft Travis Hunter, and they got Stefon Diggs, and then they've got guys that can be the 3, 4, and 5. So I think Vrabel looks at it and thinks, listen, this is a pretty easy job. I got Drake May. I got a good owner. I got a tough guy roster. I'm not going to end up in Tennessee, because what would happen if for 2 years they couldn't score, people would label Vrabel. His teams are tough, but they can't do anything offensively.
Right.
That's right. So he's going to solve this. So I get this overpay.
So I understand the logic of everything you're saying. It assumes Stefon Diggs can still play and wants to play. I don't know that that's true. Diggs last year was fine. He was not great. He was fine.
No.
And now he is going to, at the start of next season, be 10 months, not even a full year removed from the first major injury of his career. It's an ACL. It is, I would not, the Bills didn't want him back. He's free agent. It's not like they're stacked at receiver now. The Bills could have done the ultimate thing the Patriots used to do, which is build up a player's value, let him leave, trade him for value, and then bring him back. They didn't want him. 20, if you would have asked me before this show, Diggs is going to sign, what is his deal going to be? I would be like, I don't know, man. 10% less than Devontae Adams' deal? What did Devontae get?
Right.
1 for 15? 3 for 69, even if it's funny money. 26 million guaranteed is a shitload of money for Stefon Diggs, who wears out his welcome, and I don't know if he is good for Drake May. And also, the other piece of it is, I agree with a lot of what you were saying. Why aren't the Patriots the team that traded for Joe Thuney? That one I don't get. He used to be there. He won Super Bowls there. He you know what I mean? There is a real relationship. They had a better third round, well, it's next year's third round pick, but the Chiefs, I would imagine, would prefer to have a Patriots third rounder than a Bears third rounder for next season. Why? Them not addressing the offensive line, missing out on receivers, and then having to pay double what I thought Diggs would cost is a wild turn of events. Listen, if he's good, I get it, because who cares about the money when you have all the money to spend? I just don't know that Diggs is, I could see Stefon Diggs, if Diggs went to a real contender, I could see him locking in for another year. Could I see Stefon Diggs being like, retirement job, boys. I'm not getting another deal after this one anyway. I could. And so he's also a pretty wild guy off the field.
Is he?
There's two things. There is one of those team videos that I can't get out of my head. It's when he was with, I think, the Vikings, where the team social media went around to guys and they were like, hey, who in the locker room would you want your sister to date? And they gave a bunch of different answers. And then they're like, who would you not want her to date? And every single fucking guy said Diggs. Every single one of his teammates was like, not Stefon, not Diggs. It was unanimous, stay away from him. Then there's also some weird, I don't traffic in rumors. There's some weird Diggs and Cardi B stuff out there that just feels like, listen, the guy, again, you can do whatever you want. My point is, seems to really enjoy his celebrity and nightlife and all of that. And how well do players like that age at post-injury, post getting paid?
Not well.
Typically, it's not the Larry Fitzgerald path of, I am locked. And so that concerns me a bit, if I'm being honest. The Russell Wilson thing that's very interesting to me is Justin Fields got double the guarantee, triple the... What? Justin Fields got 2 for 40 with 30 guaranteed, right? Russ just got 1 for 20 with 10 guaranteed? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think...
Well, I still think... I don't think either is necessarily better than the other. I think you are paying for Justin Fields on a little bit of hope is that there's more to squeeze. There's more juice to potentially squeeze out of this young, hardworking player. I think the feeling is, listen, man, this is the last stop for Russ. And by the way, Justin Fields is an example of somebody that will never be a franchise quarterback, but he's a good kid.
His teammates
he is big.
Love him.
He's got a whip. Yeah. And being a nice guy adds value. Like, there are guys that it's like, you know what, if it doesn't work, he's a good dude in the room.
Nice guy, low maintenance, isn't going to... No, 100%. Yep. It's always... So here's my question, though, for you on the Giants, because this is happening, like, as we're recording. So they gave Jameis a deal, just $4 million. Yeah. They just signed Russ. Do you think this means if he's there, they're not drafting Shedeur?
Fubo, as you guys know, is my favorite way to watch live sports. NFL, baseball, NBA, college sports. Baseball Masters around the corner. The reason I love Fubo, I can watch it at home. I can watch it in an Uber. I can watch it on a plane. And a lot of times I'm moving, like you. Go to FuboTV.com/Colin. Fubo, F-U-B-O. FuboTV.com/Colin to get $50 off 2 months of Fubo. I watch it 4 days a week. I mean, a classic example is, you know, I'm going to an airport and a game starts and I've got a flight after my show Thursday. Well, I'm watching it in the Uber and then I'm watching it until I hit security. And then 4 minutes later, I'm watching it after security, waiting for the plane, on the plane. I mean, I can't carry around a flat screen TV. I think my guess is I don't hold Joe Schoen in high regard. I also hold my own opinions on quarterbacks in pretty high regard, and I hold my sourcing on quarterbacks in very high regard. So I trust my own judgment. I didn't like Daniel Jones. I didn't like Zach Wilson. I probably like Sam Darnold too much, but Sam proved what last year, which I believe, which is if you put him in the right spot, he can be incredibly productive, dynamic. I would draft Shedeur Sanders for a lot of reasons. And I talked about one on the show today. He had the worst O-line and the worst run game the last 2 years, Power 5 college football. And he completed an astounding 74% of his throws. That is insane. Matt Ryan completed 60% for bad teams in college. I mean, Matt Stafford with good Georgia teams completed 61.5%. 74%? Running for your life, trailing, everybody knows you're throwing with a bad O-line and no run game. It's an astounding number. So I think you can talk yourself in and out. I still think you draft Shedeur Sanders. I still think you do.
I don't know if this is a sign. This is a sign to me of because you don't sign Russ and Jameis if you're like, we're definitely drafting a quarterback. Like, you don't need two veteran backups.
Yeah, it's a coin flip now.
To me, this is a sign that either they don't like him or they think Cleveland might take him. You know what I mean? That they think there is a real chance that they don't have the opportunity to get him. Now, New England is praying it is not that they don't like him. Because the only thing that wrecks the Patriots' plans is if the draft goes like this. Cam Ward 1, Abdul Carter 2, Travis Hunter 3. and where the Giants are like, you know what? Malik Neighbors, Travis Hunter, with Hunter, moonlighting as a defensive back. And then the Patriots are sitting there at 4 and are like, Jesus, are we taking the short-armed offensive lineman? Are we taking the kid from Missouri that should go 9 at 4? Like, the Patriots really, really want 2 of the first 3 picks to be quarterbacks. That way they guarantee to get, in my opinion, tell me if you disagree, I think take the quarterbacks out of it, I think there are 2 super blue chip players in this class, Carter and Hunter. Yeah. And then everyone else, I'm not saying, I'm sure other guys will be great players, but there's 2 guys that are like, oh, wow, that could be a non-quarterback that's the talent of a number 1 pick. The Patriots, I think, would be thrilled with either of those 2. What they don't want is both of those guys to be gone and them to be stuck drafting an offensive lineman that could be there at 12, at 4. And so I'm really curious if this is because the Giants don't like Shedeur or the Giants have intel that the Browns love Shedeur.
Yeah, and I think Shedeur's built for Kevin Stefanski, who likes pocket quarterbacks over movers. So I think eventually, and the only way to get out of the Deshaun Watson disaster is how did the Broncos get out of the Russell Wilson disaster? Hit on a rookie quarterback that you don't have to pay big money for 4 years. That's the only way to get out of it. And then you just figure out ways around it. The good thing about this is the advantage NFL has over baseball and basketball. A weaker players union. First of all, you win negotiations. The team controls the player, not vice versa. You're not getting 10-year guaranteed deals. You're not getting guaranteed money much. And the second thing is, even if you make the worst deal in league history, Deshaun Watson guaranteed, in 1 year or 2 years, if you just hit on a player at the same position in the draft,
you can deal with it.
If you have like 1 or 2 good drafts and have like 9 starters, you're okay. You're fine. I mean, it really comes down to if Andrew Berry drafts well last year, this year, and next year, they're fine. It doesn't matter. If Shedeur can play, you're out of it.
Which is why I think the Browns, maybe this is the logic. Because according to what you just said, it would be the Browns almost have to draft a quarterback, even if they don't love him.
Yes.
Because it's their only path. The only path for them is a competent quarterback that makes no money. Because every other, in the midst of this mess, they didn't make the playoffs because they had a competent quarterback who made no money, except instead of being a rookie, he was my age, named Joe Flacco. You know what I mean? So that is interesting. I assumed this draft was going to go Cam Ward 1, Abdul Carter 2, because the Browns would be like, man, Myles Garrett, Abdul Carter on the edge. At least that's set. And then the Giants being the pivot point where are they taking Shedeur or not? Because the other thing for Shedeur is this. I don't know how much you've looked at it. If he doesn't go 3, he might not go in the top 15. Like the
Aaron Rodgers year.
When you look at, I'm going to pull it up real quick.
There's just not many teams. I mean, you could say
Saints, maybe.
You could say
no,
Raiders.
The Raiders just traded for Geno.
They did, but you could draft somebody and sit them for a year and a half.
No, that's true. But certainly the Raiders' chances of drafting a quarterback went way down when they traded for Geno.
Yeah.
And so it's just I was doing this the other day. Tennessee 1, Cleveland 2, Giants 3. All need quarterbacks. Then it goes Patriots, Drake. Yeah. Jacksonville, Trevor. Raiders, Geno with an asterisk. Jets, the Jets could, but they also, I think the Jets really like the idea of let's, for the first time in forever, have a season where everyone's not like, how good's the quarterback? What's the quarterback doing? How are we developing the quarterback? Let Aaron Glenn set things and then go get the quarterback. Panthers 8, no. Saints are a maybe at 9. But the Saints they're tied to Carr. But then Bears, no. Caleb. Niners, no. Brock. Cowboys. Dolphins. Colts, I guess at 14. But it is a lot of teams. And then after the Colts, Falcons, no. Cardinals, Bengals, Seahawks, Bucks, Broncos, then the Steelers at 21. And that might be why Rodgers might, you asked me about Rodgers on the show. The one thing I didn't mention that I do wonder if it's a possibility is if Rodgers is trying to but trying to ensure the Steelers don't draft a quarterback. I don't want to sign with you and then risk getting benched for the first round quarterback. I want to see what you do with your first round pick before I commit to come there. Because there is a scenario where Shedeur slips. I don't necessarily think it's going to happen, but if he gets out of the top 3, there's only a few spots for him.
Get ready for more must-watch TV from Vice Sports. Introducing The Grudge. It's a new series that's going to relive and unpack many of sports' most intense personal and team rivalries, exploring the egos and the history and high-stakes drama that turn ordinary gameplay into unforgettable battles. Delivering something for everybody. Each controversy-laced episode of The Grudge digs into the grievances between teams and top sports personalities in football, basketball, MMA, baseball, hockey, golf, and more. Narrator Will Compton, former NFL linebacker and co-host of Bustin' with the Boys, going to be joined by a cast of personalities, including retired NFL wide receiver Steve Smith Sr., 4-time Stanley Cup champ Darren McCarty, former baseball great and manager Bobby Valentine, and renowned NBA journalist Howard Beck, and others who tell the stories of these animosities. You'll also see nostalgic archival footage from witnesses, fans, players, coaches closely connected to that week's story. New episodes of The Grudge air every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern, only on Vice TV. Go to vicetv.com to find your cable channel. Yeah, I mean, I think I actually said today, I think Aaron Rodgers is smart to wait. If Kirk Cousins waits, he doesn't go to Atlanta. He lands somewhere where he's the guy. The other thing is, I said this the other day, most of the good big brands in America, and I'll name them, Yankees, Dodgers, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Duke, North Carolina, Arizona basketball, Boston Celtics, Lakers. If you look, Green Bay Packers, Philadelphia Eagles, San Francisco 49ers. If you look at the biggest brands right now in sports, this is very rare. UConn basketball, men's and women's. Almost all of them are achieving at a high traditional level. The one that not only isn't, but seems to be incredibly delusional is the Pittsburgh Steelers, who gave Tomlin an extension. They can't figure out offense. It's a 7-year run on bad quarterback and O-line play, and it's one of the biggest brands in the league. If you go look, Notre Dame football's crushing virtually all the big brands right now. Braves, Atlanta Braves, a big brand in baseball. Cubs have a very good team. The Pittsburgh Steelers situation, to me, I cannot believe Steeler fan, if you polled them, they get angry if you question where they are in the ecosystem of the NFL. I don't even think, if you took out the NFC, I don't think they're close to a Super Bowl team. Not even close.
All right, so I have two things. One is, one of the saddest things in the last decade that's happened to the Dallas Cowboys is their fall from grace to where you forgot them in the brands, the big brands, didn't even mention them, but they would be the other team that is not holding up their end.
But their fans would
say yes, 100%. So I'm going to pitch you a name of the next time. Right. The next time you want to talk Steelers on the show, if you want a Steelers guest, I introduced you and the great Danny Parkins. I'm going to pitch you another name, which is Andrew Filipponi.
I heard the name.
He does afternoons on the Fan in Pittsburgh and has been for years. Was for years the only Mike Tomlin skeptic, where he was the guy, the unpopular local radio host who was like, hey, where are the playoff wins? Like, why is everyone okay with 9 wins or 10 wins when we all know we can't win a playoff game. And now, maybe partially to his doing or partially because it has been proven out so much, I think that side of the coin is gaining some momentum, but it was highly unpopular. Like, and local radio, there is nothing harder than being like, hey, the local team that everyone loves when we talk about the most, they're not that good. When people think they're good. If they're a terrible team, then it's easy to be like, fire everyone, they suck. But when everyone loves them and they're always good-ish, it's hard to be like, why is this okay? And he has been banging this drum for 4 years that Tomlin might be a good coach, but what's best for the Steelers is to turn the page and to find someone who understands modern offense. And what's good for Tomlin is to try to get the setup Jim Harbaugh got, which is good young quarterback that can take care of the offense, and I can focus on the defense. And so, yeah, you and him would agree on the Steelers. I'm telling you that right now.
Yeah. It is interesting that you're right. Cowboys and Steelers are the two brands that you look at and go, phew. But Cowboy fans have been polled in recent years and asked about the organization, and summarily, it is a complete agreement within the Cowboy. Yeah, they're like, Jerry's becoming old Al Davis. Our drafts are bad. We overpay for average players. We don't know what we're doing. By the way, you were one of the first people, and it took some courage because 4 years ago this was not popular. You were one of the first people to just bail on Dak Prescott. Yeah. I remember it well. And I think you liked him less than I did. I loved his intangibles. I loved his EQ, his IQ, good guy. I always gave him credit for the dysfunction of the team and kind of holding it together
and he
during
some
cultural changes. Yeah. But you were one of the first people that just said, I'm watching the games.
But
he's
so
not,
and
he's
it's
not very
been
good.
It's been tough for me because it's been a bit of a roller coaster with me because I also the first year we had the TV show was coming off his rookie season, and I was adamant during his rookie season that I thought if he wasn't a rookie, I said he would have gotten real MVP consideration. Team was 13-3, had like 23 touchdowns, 4 picks or something. And then he also played great in that playoff game against the Packers. Aaron Rodgers, that was kind of Aaron Rodgers' last great playoff moment, was the pass down the sideline to the tight end, I don't remember, in that great win against the Cowboys. So I was high on him initially. My problem for Dak and the Cowboys is it's not really even an indictment on Dak because I do think he is good. I just think that, and you've heard me say this 100 times, the worst thing you can do in the NFL is pay a good quarterback like he is a great quarterback.
Great money.
And it is also, by the way, why I think the Niners would be out of their mind to pay Purdy right now. And it also this idea that the Niners are obligated to across industries, but certainly in pro sports, guys typically don't get paid early off their worst year. You can get paid off your worst year if you're a true free agent. It's like, he has a body of work, he's had a down year, and we want to keep him. Or you can get paid early off an awesome year. It's very rare that you and the team can have the worst year that you or the team has had since you've been there. And that's when they're like, yep, we're going to 10x your salary. That's not how teams typically do it. And so no one has properly explained to me, and it seems like they're going to. I just think it's a mistake. Why the Niners wouldn't wait. Go ahead.
There is a certain guilt factor. Let's say here at the Volume, we hired an intern. He ended up being really effective. And then after his 2-year internship was over, we'd never paid him or, just given him swag. he wanted his own show. And he said, but I want 250,000. And I'd say, I'll give you 80,000, but I'm not going to give you. I, as a business guy, would say, yeah, we'll see you. Somebody else can pay for that. But I do think there's a lot of people that would be like, well, he was 2 years, he was free. I'm going to pay him. And I look at it and go, no, relative to your position and other people at the volume, I'm not going to pay you more than like. So my take is sometimes sports is cruel.
Correct. And
it is cruel that Brock Purdy, but he's also benefited from Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, Kyle Shanahan, George Kittle, Jawan Jennings, and a division which has been in flux the last several years.
A couple things. Under that scenario, I would probably tell you, Colin Cowherd, pay the fucking kid and just do it out of your pocket. There's no salary cap. But if it was like, hey, there's a podcast salary cap, and if we pay you, we're going to have to get rid of someone else or not keep them, that's a different story. That's the first thing. Second thing's this. It's not that I wouldn't offer Brock anything, but I would say, hey, man, if you are really worried about security and you haven't made real money, I will right now sign you to the deal Daniel Jones signed. I'll sign it. I'll offer you that.
Totally agree.
Offer you
100%
that deal right now.
Yep.
And even if you don't play great, you know what? Call it back pay because you earned that already with the Super Bowl appearance. But if you want something close to the deal Dak Prescott signed,
I'm drafting a quarterback.
And by the way, I'm going to let you, well, what I was going to say is, I'll just let you play this year and go show it to me. Prove it to me because I'm not paying you off this bad year. I'm just not. So I wouldn't, it's not that I would play a hardball to a degree of like, you're under contract, you have no contract offer from me. I wouldn't do that. But I would not pay in all business, but sports in particular. The way it almost always works is this. It is the earlier you get paid, the less money you receive because you are trading high-end financial upside for the safety of shit, there's injuries and bad things happen, whatever it is. The way to make the most money is to let contracts expire. You know what I mean? And then see what the market has to offer. But that's also the way to sometimes make no money because shit goes bad. So if I am a team and I am paying you early, what I am getting back is a deal, a bargain, and what you are getting is the security. The only guys who get paid, they get to double dip where it's like, I want to be paid early and make the most money, are the elite of the elite. And Purdy's not that. So like Justin Jefferson gets to 3 years into his deal be like, I want to be paid the first day possible and the most money at the position ever. And Mahomes didn't take the most money ever, but he took such a huge, long deal as early as possible. Josh Allen. Tua, on the other hand, the team was like, we're going to wait another year. And then he went out and had his best year, and they paid him. And I think that was a mistake, but they didn't pay him as early as they could have. They made him wait that fourth year. And so I just don't know why what the argument against telling Purdy, play out your fourth year. Let's see how it goes. And worst case scenario for you, kid, we either hit you with a 1 year, $45 million franchise tag, or you hit the open market. The only way you are not going to be crazy rich is if you have a horrendous year this year. You don't think you will, or take some security. But this notion that he's going to get the Joe Burrow deal, I just think would be franchise mismanagement.
When it comes to college basketball and March Mania, one thing's for sure, nothing is for sure. Doesn't matter. Buzzer beaters, Cinderellas, advancing, upsets. It's all going to happen. Bet the unexpected every upset every day with DraftKings Sportsbook. Live betting, exclusive content, promos, parlays. DraftKings, the ultimate college basketball destination for March. If you're a first-timer, here's something cool, something special just for you. $5. New DraftKings customers, bet $5. And you'll get 200 instantly in bonus bets. How about that? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, 90 seconds. Use my name, the code Colin, C-O-L-I-N. New customers, $200 in bonus bets, betting just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. So it was funny today. About once a month, I get J-Mac worked up. Because when you work with somebody for 3 hours, you're bound to sometimes get people worked up. And it's usually on stuff that's just generational. Like I'm older and I see the world one way, and he's a former blogger that sees it another. So he got worked up.
About what? I didn't see this.
So so this is the one that I was going to ask you on the show, and I thought, no, I'm going to save this for the podcast. So I said, some things you got to keep to yourself. You just don't say out loud. Yeah. Or if you do say them out loud, honey, how do I look in this dress? The answer can only be one thing. So Puka Nacua is 23, had some injuries. And he said yesterday, I'm going to retire at 30. And I said, don't say that. Because I have more contacts in the NFL than any league by far. They do not care about your work-life balance. And by next year, the Rams will be drafting a number one receiver. They don't care. They don't want to hear it. It also introduces questions that you don't need. Let's say he has a bad year. Oh, well, he's not really committed. Well, he's going to retire anyway. I mean, he's already talking retirement. It's like Brett Favre in 2023 said it out loud. I'm 90% retired.
Aaron Rodgers.
He's never
Aaron
been the
Rodgers.
same. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. By the way, if he said it out loud in 2023, in 2021, he was thinking it or telling people privately. So and J-Mac didn't like this.
What was his take? That there was no harm in it? Why not just...
He's like, well, what? I mean, by the way, are you begrudging a guy for putting his money away? And I said, do you think Fox tells me everything in negotiations and I tell them everything?
Well, that's the thing is, I don't think you would begrudge anyone for retiring at 30. I think you're saying just don't let them know that's your plan.
Exactly.
And yeah.
Okay, I'll give you one. Trevor Lawrence said, I'm not defined by football. And that comment defined him.
Well, it has certainly followed
you're
him.
You're not going to be Tom. You're not going to be Peyton. You're not going to be Mahomes. We need it to kind of define you and be obsessed.
It's maybe a sad statement of the media. Maybe it shouldn't be this way, but sometimes those throwaway comments, Cam Newton, Peter King said that he was like, I want to be an entertainer and an icon. And it's still like, I still remember it. It's still kind of hung around him, even as great as he was at his peak. You mentioned the Andrew Luck thing. It certainly has not gone away. I think that he's young enough. Puka is 30 is far enough away that I don't think it is a huge deal. But do I agree with you that there is very little benefit to him for saying that? I don't see the benefit. I don't see what he gains from saying that. No, that's certainly true. Does it change how, I don't know how much it impacts what the Rams think of him, because that still is the window of his full second contract. But yeah, in general, I do think that we are in an oversharing era. And I'm certain, listen, I'm part of that too. I took a screenshot of a text message my wife sent me making fun of me and tweeted it. That didn't go over great. I did that yesterday. And now I'm talking about it didn't go over great. That probably also won't go over great. So like sometimes I can be an oversharer, but I am in the sharing business. Like my I guess defense is I talk for a living. I create content for a living. Sometimes you're going to get out over your skis a bit. But that's really interesting that you think it's a big deal for the Rams. I don't think it's ideal, but I don't know. I think it's a huge deal.
And now for our next segment, Whiskey Business, brought to you by Green River Whiskey, the official whiskey of the Colin Cowherd podcast. If you want to enjoy life's simple pleasures, reach for Green River Whiskey. Whether it's rye whiskey, single barrel bourbon, you're getting over a century of craftsmanship packed into every bottle. Hop on over to greenriverwhiskey.com and discover a legend in a bottle today. Well, I think your point is also true, is that if you're trading for him in 4 years or 3 years, it's like, guys.
That's a different story. You know what I mean? And I also do agree. I've heard from enough NFL players that once you start thinking about retirement, it is some would say, well then, Nick, are you concerned about Kelsey this season? I would argue that for guys who are at an age where you expect them to retire, I think you get, because his brother did it too in this regard. It was like, oh, is Jason going to come back? Jason came back for one more year and then was done. And so I think when you're talking about Aaron, I think the trouble for Aaron is, you said 23, but so in the summer of 23, or he says I'm 90% retired, then he pops his Achilles, then he plays a season, and now we're going for a third year post potential retirement. And by the way, I think one of you accidentally said Favre, and I thought you said the right name but the wrong year, because Favre did the same fucking thing. Favre was like, am I coming back and am I not? And did that 3 years in Green Bay and then played 3 more years.
Yeah.
Like, because he played 1 with the Jets and 2 with the Vikings. So,
I mean, think about this. Think about early comments. Have any worked in your favor? Trevor Lawrence, Big Ben talked about retirement early, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, just Cam Newton. Think about the retirement talk or the not all in talk that has ever benefited an athlete. Like, you ever watch the show Survivor? Who unravels first? I miss my family. I miss my bed. I miss my friends.
Of course.
They always unravel. It's like, okay, we know it's not easy, pro football. Stay focused. Off season, go to Turks and Caicos. In season, you're going to be in pain and you have to play through it.
Can I tell you a totally unrelated thing? Not totally unrelated. It's related, but it's different. So this is so funny. I'm so excited to tell you this, because I had no recollection that this happened. But in the lead up to the 2017 draft, okay? Mm-hmm. So this is 4 months before First Things First launches. I'm still out in LA. Chris Carter and I filled in for you one day. And one of the guests we had was potential first-round pick Patrick Mahomes. Again, I had no memory that this took place. It was sent to me a week ago by someone close to Patrick and was like, yo, he kind of nailed this. And I asked Patrick, if everything goes perfectly, where are you in 10 years? He has not been drafted yet. He's not a Chief. You know what I mean? And he's like, okay. He's like, if everything goes perfectly, he's like, I'm married. I have a couple of kids. I have a couple of Super Bowl championships. And I'm one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He said that. And by the way, he undershot the amount of kids and Super Bowls by 1 each. And he set the sights as high as they possibly could, but he had a plan. And I didn't know at the time he was dating his high school sweetheart. So he also knew who he wanted to marry. He's like, I want to marry this girl. I want to have a family with her. And while I'm doing it, I want to win these championships. And so he was not, famous enough of a prospect to where that, got any traction or whatever. But I sent it. I sent it to him after it was sent to me like, hey, man, sold yourself short, but this is pretty fucking unbelievable. You said your goal, perfect world, 10 years in. He saw it. He was like, married, family guy, championships. And 8 years in, he's 50% higher in all categories than his perfect world. But he has
His vision was
exactly
right
on. And I do think that, I think sometimes it can be crippling for guys, but I'll take, sorry to turn this into Mahomes and then LeBron, but I think the guys who walk into the league and, what was LeBron's goal? Anything short of being the greatest player ever, he was going to feel like he came up short. And you know what I mean? And everything he did was on that route. I don't
Yep.
think Patrick thought initially, oh, I'm going to be in the GOAT conversation. But after 2 years of playing, when he has one league MVP and one Super Bowl, he immediately said, basically, man, Tom's got 7. Like I now know where I'm going. I know
Yep.
what I'm chasing.
Well, think about this. Think about this. You can talk yourself into being sick. We
Yeah.
know that. We know psychologically people can talk themselves into
And
being
it seems
sick.
like they can talk themselves
So,
out of it. Have you ever had a thing? I don't know the science on this. I apologize. But I have had multiple times in my life where something is going on, either work wise or whatever, where I like literally can't get sick right now. Like but the moment that ends, where it's like, okay, whether it's the
yeah.
NFL playoffs or when I was planning for me and my wife's wedding / vow renewal, whatever, once that ends, I immediately get really sick. And it's like, oh, I was sick 2 weeks ago, but my body held it off to almost be
Yeah.
not now, but then allowed for it after.
Well, yeah. How about when people are on their deathbed and, you see these couples married for
Yeah.
62 years, one dies and one follows suit 3 days later. Like there is a spiritual component to this where you can you can manifest stuff. I mean, there's a reason there's that saying is that you can talk yourself in and out of stuff very quickly. And I think a lot of it's like even body language. How do you sell yourself? I remember, I'll give you a story. I'll personalize it for a second. So when I went to interview for the job at ESPN, I interviewed in Houston at the Super Bowl with John Walsh, who's one of the gurus of Bengalis, older gentleman, and he was, and I kind of knew he was a New Yorker, very well read, very learned guy. So I bought a New Yorker magazine flying from Portland, and I read it front to back. And so when we sat down, I pulled out my bag and he saw the New Yorker. He goes, "Oh, you read the New Yorker?" I said, "Oh, absolutely. Big subscriber." And I had a couple of articles. It was a good, I still subscribe to it, by the way, but there was a couple of good articles in there. But I knew that I had heard that ESPN would interview you and they would test your sports knowledge. So I memorized the Chicago White Sox bullpen.
Why the White Sox?
And so, well, because they weren't
Okay.
great. And so I said during the interview, I said, "Listen, John, you guys don't do radio particularly well." And I said, "Listen, don't get me wrong. I can tell you who the White Sox bullpen is." Boom, 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 boom. You'll never hear me say it on the air. And it kind of de-armed him. He was like, "Jesus, I don't even know the White Sox bullpen." He was a baseball guy. And so I said, "Yeah, I mean, I can tell you the White Sox bullpens, boom, 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 lefty, righty, lefty, righty, lefty, righty." I would never say that on the air. It's terrible radio, and I described it. And so I basically talked myself in to winning this interview, and I almost planned it. And the point was, after I said that, I knew I had the job. I was so confident. It was like, I was literally like, "Oh, we're 8 minutes in.
So
I've already won the job."
Go ahead.
And the point being is, I knew if I could do the New Yorker and the White Sox bullpen, I would get the job. Where I wouldn't get it if he didn't think I was well read or I didn't really know,
Yes.
Front and back page of the sports section. So my point is, you can plan a lot in your life.
Yes. And so can I tell my version of that story? This is stuff like, because I've heard, sometimes you and I talk and we kind of, I don't want to say get into reruns, but we tell each other things that we know about each other.
Yeah.
I've never heard that, but I have okay, so I am doing radio in Kansas City and find out there is the morning show open in Houston. And at the time, I have one career goal, and it is to one day replace you. It was truly my goal, was one day I'm going to host noon to 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio. It was the slot I'd listened to you in forever. And I knew I didn't even really want to go to Houston, but I knew I couldn't get there from Kansas City. Like, you know what I mean? I needed to go to a bigger market. You got there from Portland, but that's tricky. And so, but I know two things. I know, one, the guy is going to be worried that I'm a little young. The PD, you know what I mean? Because this is 2012, so I'm 27. And the guy whose job I would be the guy who was doing it is Mark Vandermeer, who to this day is the voice of the Texans. So, you know, in his 40s at the time, grown man, he's leaving just because the voice of the Houston Texans is now, they're starting their own radio network, and it's a full-time gig. And so I'm like, he's going to be worried I'm too young, and he's going to be worried, like any local radio guy is. It's a call-in show that I'm going to get jumped with, well, you remember the Love You Blue Oilers, and I'm going to be like, who are they? And they're going to be like, oh, this fraud is not from here, doesn't know stuff. And so I was like, okay. On the initial phone call, I mentioned, out of nowhere, seemingly, but it was strategic, I was like, hey, and I also want to tell you something about me. I was like, it's a little weird because, you know, I'm only 27. I was like, but as it happens, you know, I have how old would he have been then if I was 27? Okay, yeah. I was like, I know this is weird because I'm 27. I was like, but I have a 13-year-old son and, you know, a first grade daughter. And, you know, I've been married for some years. And so, you know, my family would be coming with me to Houston. And he was like, you have an older son and daughter? And I'm like, yeah, it told him the story of my family. But I knew that immediately would trump is this some young kid that's going to get whatever. So that was taken care of. And so then he calls me the next day. He's like, I want to fly you in to meet our market manager and to do a test and meet everyone. Like, okay, cool. That's going to be in 3 days. So in those 3 days, made a Houston Sports by hand color-coded 20-page encyclopedia that I have to this day as a PDF, which was 5 pages on the Rockets, every first-round pick in their history, every playoff series in their history, their current roster, salary cap, how the player was acquired, handwritten. Green was money, red was injuries, blue was age. Rockets, Astros, Texans, U of H, because I thought, and University of Texas. All handwritten, then took it to Kinko's, had it turned into basically a binder. And I go to the interview, the dinner, and we're about halfway through it. And I'm like, hey, I want to show you something. And he's like, okay. And I take it out. And I'm like, listen, you haven't said this, but I know talk radio. Your concern is that I'm not from here. And that the callers, someone is going to call me, and they're going to say something every Houstonian knows about. I'm not going to know about it. And I'm going to be, they're going to be like, we can't listen to this guy. He doesn't, know what Mario Ellie's kiss of death is. Like, he's not one of us. I was like, I guarantee you that won't happen. And if because I'll know what I need to know, and B, if I don't, I'll tap dance just long enough to find it in this, and showed him my thing. And he looked at it and he was like, you made this? It's like, yeah. He's like, when? Like, you found out you were coming here 3 days ago. I was like, I don't know, it's taken me about 30 hours in the last 3 days, but I made it. And in that moment, I got the job. In that moment, I got the job, and I knew, like, I'm not going to have another opportunity, maybe in the next year or 2 or 3 years, to go from Kansas City to a top 5 market drive time. If I ever want to do what I really want to do professionally, I have to get this job. So I have to figure out the things the guy wants to hear and get him there before I even get there. And so when you're talking about the White Sox bullpen and the New Yorker, I'm like, that's just me talking about my kids and making this encyclopedia. Like you walked into that interview with John Walsh. You were doing local radio in Portland. You were the best local radio guy in the Northwest, but the jump from that to you know what I mean? I'm not saying you wouldn't have gotten to where you are now, but if you don't get that job then, it's maybe a 5-year detour. Like that's the most important 60 minutes of your professional life up to that point. So
no question.
Stuff like,
and I was going to control
exactly. Don't leave that shit to chance. Like that is
So that goes back and then we go back to speak things into existence. So before you made that chart, you said to yourself, okay, here's what I'm going to do. You not only spoke it into existence, you created it, and then you delivered on it. So I think the bigger, as we kind of come full circle on this, is you have much more control of your destination and of your destiny than anybody wants to admit. Fate, I always said this, luck is a word used by average people to validate their mediocrity. Well, my sister's lucky. And I'm like, I bet if you inspected your sister, she's got her shit together. It's like when people use luck or fate, it's everybody in life controls their destiny. Like it's one thing if you have a bad upbringing and at 28, you're still trying to kind of get above sea level. But by 44 years old.
So that's a whole nother discussion. But I think that there's, I think that there are 10% on each end. I think there's 10% might be strong, but there might be 10% of the population that no matter how badly they tried to fuck up their situation, they just couldn't. Everything comes up them, or they have such a giant safety net of everything that they're going to be fine. And I do think there's 10% or whatever that it just things have, no matter how hard they work or all the right decisions they make, things go against them. Again, I'm making up the numbers. My point is that I think there are extremes on both ends. I think most everyone else, it's a lot of what you make it out to be. And the thing you said there that I think is a really valuable sentiment, that barring true, and again, I was very blessed. You and I are both children of divorce, but I had no real childhood trauma. So I don't, again, remove.
Same.
I'm not talking about people who dealt with real childhood trauma.
Right.
If you had what I would call a typical childhood, certainly by the time you're old enough to rent a car without having to pay an extra fee, that can't be what's holding you back. You know what I mean? At some point, like when you are, I am not very, and I try to be a very empathetic person, but I think sometimes people hold themselves back by acting as if, things just aren't going to go the way they should for me because of, my parents. And again, barring the extremes, it's like, hey, like you said, you're in your mid-30s. Like that is part of your story, but it no longer is your story. You know what? And so that is, I do agree with that. And I think that people that are cool with, hey, shit wasn't perfect, but I made the most of it, are typically some of the happiest or most well-adjusted, as opposed to people who are very stuck in the shit that wasn't perfect before.
Yeah, no, I've told my kids this before. Life's about reaction, not action. Like everybody makes mistakes with action. How do you react to your fuck-ups? That's going to go a long way because you're all going to step in it. Some people go hide. Some people it literally haunts them. And other people are like, own it. Wow. Got to start over. Yep. Like how you react to others and your own mistakes, that'll pretty much define you. So don't be rigid. Don't be precious. Don't get down on yourself. Stay optimistic. Be a good coworker. Lubricate. Don't agitate. Your life will be fine. I always told my daughter when she was young, I said, there's only one mistake that statistically can kill you: getting into the wrong car. So I always bought my kids cars early, used, but my take is I trust your
you to
judgment.
drive rather than someone
You
else.
get into a car with
Yeah, that's so.
yes, you get into
That's
a
the
car.
only thing.
Yeah, a girl gets into a car with a guy showing off. That's how you end
Yep.
up in the obituary
That's so
section.
again, and then we can get back to whatever you had planned. But you and I, that's another similarity for us. We live in New York, so my kids didn't have cars as my daughter didn't have a car in high school or when she's back from college. We live in New York City, but some of her friends obviously do or they drive, and I'm big on. I probably spend a irrational amount on Ubers because I'm like, I'd rather just trust it. And so the only thing that I have added to that is, and I'm drinking wine during this interview. I'm not a teetotaler at all. And maybe this is part of my age showing or whatever it is. When I was growing up, pill-based drugs were not a thing. You know what I mean? It was like kids smoked weed. Some of the really aggressive kids might have occasionally tripped on acid. And I'm like, y'all are crazy. But nobody and then maybe the wildest kids oh my God, I heard that guy did cocaine at a party. That was really out of in high school. That was really out of the mainstream.
Yeah.
But 20 years later, a ton of kids just the party drug stuff, the ecstasy, Molly, there's a very small barrier for entry where kids don't look at that as scandalous as I would have. And that shit scared the hell out of me because I'm like, nah, man, that's the other way that you can basically anything short of, like you said, get in a terrible car accident or taking a bad drug, we can recover from. If you we can recover from a lot of stuff. You get suspended from school. We can recover from it. You get, you get in a fight and you get picked up by the cops. They make you spend the night in jail. We can recover from normal adolescent bullshit. We can, as a family, recover from almost anything. Terrible car wreck or didn't know what was in that pill, you can't always recover from. So those are really the only things as a parent I really you keep you up at night, that you're worried about. Because everything else you feel okay, you know what I mean? It's an expensive lesson, or you know what I mean? You take a learn from it or whatever. And so, yeah, I'm with you on that 1,000%.
Sorry to interrupt this great video, but please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you. Now back to the video. Bill Maher said something the other day that your personality leads you into your politics. And this is something I've thought about for a long time, is that if you were bullied, you were small, you're a smaller person, you were bullied, you're more likely to be empathetic to people who have been bullied and people who have been under siege or oppressed. And if you're a 6'4", great-looking quarterback in high school and college that's kind of arrogant and always got the pretty girl, you're not going to be as empathetic over the course of your early life for the guy that didn't have things go his way. So your personality and your life experience kind of leads you into your politics, not vice versa. And, I was thinking this, and I don't obsess over stuff like this, but one of the things that, and I look at it as suffering from, I've never done this. So when I was in Vegas, when I was a kid, we were all sports diehards. I collected baseball cards and NBA cards. I would memorize sports, back of baseball cards. We all did that in our profession at 8, 12, 13. But I do remember moments in my life around 17, 18, 19, first getting to college, that I would see guys on the college campus, and here's who I viewed as cool: the guy with the best looking girlfriend, not the sports nerd. And so in my life, I never thought that there was that much redeemable value or cool factor in being the most knowledgeable sports guy.
Sure.
Can you ask the cute girl for a date? Can you socialize? Are you fun at a party? Are you a good hang? And so I was thinking about this the other day. Why have I never been a fan of mid-majors in college?
Okay.
Why have I always been a fan of the big brands. I mean, since I started doing syndicated radio. And there's probably 2 or 3 reasons. One, it's smarter business. But part of me thinks is because I just didn't want to watch mid-major basketball. I wanted to have a social life. I wanted to have a girlfriend. And I'd watch Duke and Carolina and Gonzaga and UCLA and Syracuse and UConn. I'll let you nerds watch Murray State. And that my whole theory on college basketball has been based on I don't want to put in the work. The reason my bracket is so good this year because there's no
exactly
upsets.
Right. Exactly right. First of all,
so it's my apathy that led to my great bracket.
I agree with I love everything you're saying. I'll tell you right now, you better make a handwritten note and send an edible arrangement to your dear friend Ryan Rosillo after that. Because my God, there is no one that's going to feel more attacked for watching meaningless basketball than that guy. I mean, his entire identity is based around, did you see Magic Cavs? And the answer is no, I fucking didn't. Let's tell you right now. And again, I don't know Ryan. He's a friend of yours and friend of a lot of my friends. I'm not taking a shot. But it's also, that's also, but it is very, very good. There are people that are watching everything because it allows for you to, have a wife and kids and a social life. So I think what you were saying in the beginning is really interesting, which is you wanted to follow what you had to follow and wanted to follow what you loved. Because here's the other thing, what you left out. I'm certain of it, you watched a lot of college football that you didn't have to
tons.
for work because you loved it.
Yeah.
And so, but there are, for me, there's this, anything I've always been a big believer of. If you told me this was the Chinese checkers world championship and those are the 2 best in the world, I'm captivated. If you, I don't care what the competition is. If you tell me there are high stakes and it's the best in the world, I'm in. I don't even really need to know the rules of the sport. I'll pick it up. I'm into big events with real stakes, and I'm into the sports that I love. So I can watch almost anything. But so you and I have a similar, I think, affinity for current college basketball, which is, I don't love it day to day during the regular season. And
no, I mean, good God, teams shoot 26% regularly. You can literally, there's 4 teams in the tournament that can shoot.
It's not a great product. It's great drama.
No.
It's not a great product. And so I've never, and so I was playing in a poker tournament over the weekend, and somebody was trying to handicap. I was in it. There were some professional sports bettors there, and 2 professional sports bettors were arguing about which side of the game was sharper, one of the second round tournament games. And they're like, oh, ask Nick, have him be the tiebreaker. And I just told him, I'm like, I'm the wrong fucking guy for this one. Like, what do you mean? You do this for a living? I was like, I've not talked about either of these teams once all year. And they're like, you don't have to watch everything? I'm like, oh, no. I have to watch everything that I talk about. So I watch every NFL game that there is to watch, and I watch a ton of the NBA because I love it. And in the tournament, I watch the tournament. But if you're asking me, am I hanging out at home watching college basketball regular season? I don't pretend to. I don't claim to the audience I do. Yeah. The thing I have a problem with is folks who are not okay admitting that and pretend they did.
Yeah.
Nobody looks at me and they're like, oh, Nick is dialed into the NHL this year. No, I'm not, and I don't pretend to be. And so it is really funny that you think
My take originated because I looked at guys who in Vegas, professional sports gamblers. I'm like, overweight, no girlfriends, kind of a mess, not cool, and I don't want to do that.
So this is a first cousin, and then I know we have to go. So I, last week, was on, it was the day before I came on your show, because I flew overnight. I was on a live poker stream for a high-stakes poker game in Vegas. And I walked into Wild's office that next day. He was like, here's what's great for you about those poker streams. I'm like, what's that? And he's like, against the world, he's like, you're not that cool. But at that table, you're the coolest fucking guy around.
I've seen these. I've seen you.
He's like, he goes, at that specific table, he's like, one guy looks like he didn't even look in the mirror. Another guy can't even talk to the table. He's like, you're just hanging out, drinking, your diamond chains are showing. He's like, you look really cool. He's like, but I see you every day. He's like, you're not really cool. But in that environment, against those people, he's like, you're pretty cool. And I'm like, yeah, it's exactly right. Like, against the typical professional, people think the professional gambler life is glamorous. And it is for Phil Ivey.
That's awful.
You know what I mean? And Nick Schulman and Billy Walters. But for everybody else, it's just grinding out 56%.
Yeah, I always said I knew a guy, Dave Koken passed away. He was a very sharp bettor and a big baseball bettor. And in Vegas, I didn't know him well, but I knew Dave. And Dave, he was really, really good at what he did. And he was a total grinder. Like, but I always theorized if I was going to be a sports gambler, I would be a professional NFL gambler because you can bet the most and watch the least. And I never understood guys who say, I'm going to be a professional sports gambler. I'm going to do baseball. And I'm like, so you're giving up 150 days a year to your wife and good times. Like, to me, I would, in the NFL, they give you higher stakes.
Total.
I mean, you can bet whatever.
You have higher limits.
Higher total. You can bet
more.
Higher limits.
I think it's harder to, I think the reason for that is I think it's harder to beat. I think any market where.
And also, they have a bigger well of money. So if they do get taken, 8 million people bet it, and you can get taken for $100,000. And like when I was in Vegas, they wouldn't allow you. They stopped letting you bet Ivy League football because the 8 guys that did all won. Of course. So they just said no more betting.
No, there is a whole world, and this is something that I think is a really fascinating world that people don't totally understand, of how sharp in today's day and age, because gambling now is very different than previously because it's legal basically everywhere and you don't have to. Yeah. So the life of the true sharp bettor today is so fascinating because so much of it is using their reputation as the sharp bettor with Vegas to move the line. So let me just try to explain to the audience what I'm talking about. So much of the life of the true professional gambler today is, there is a basketball game that I love if I could get 5 points. The underdog I love the underdog at +5, but they are currently at +4.5. So I, as a known sharp bettor, am going to, as me, walk in to a big Vegas sports book and bet $100,000 if I can get it on the favorite at -4.5. Because they will look at me as a sharp bettor that likes the 4.5 and say, oh, line's too low. We have to move it to 5. I, the sharp bettor, only ever wanted it at 5, And now I'm going to use all the people I have betting for me who are square bettors to hammer it at 5. Like, so much of the actual today's professional gambling is manipulated line movement, is like people moving the line for themselves. It's really, again, I'm not talking about the people, for the people who just bet the way you and I do, as as an entertainment thing or fun or whatever, it has no impact whatsoever. But for the folks who are betting the highest of stakes and a half point means the world, they are moving lines, betting other sides. It is a fascinating, and to your point, it is a time-consuming job. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, it moved here in this place. It's a really fascinating thing that I don't think it has been. There hasn't been the exact right book or movie or whatever, long magazine article written to where people understand what all goes into it now that gambling has changed the way it's changed. I'm not the guy to write the book, but I am the guy to watch it happen. I'm fascinated by that stuff.
Yeah. Chad Millman could write the book, and Lem Banker was a friend of mine. Rest in peace. He was a sports gambler in Las Vegas, and I became pretty close with him. And one day I went over to his house for literally like 4 hours.
Watched him do it.
He laid out his bets that day and the numbers and the places he was calling. He was a really charitable, really neat guy. But there's no question that he loved any information he could get. He just listened. He goes, "I've been broke," and then I kind of figured out the game, and he had no problem going 7-6 every weekend. Bet whatever it is, $5,000 a bet, and going 7-6, and he just played the numbers, and that's 5,000, and boom. I mean, he just did not suffer losses badly. He just understood, I just need to be 57%. And he was the one that sort of showed me that it's a volume play. If you bet consistently the same amount of money and you can hit 57%,
unbelievable.
You're going to make a bunch of money. And he had bad months and good months. He went on a bad streak with me once, and then he went on a streak where he was 13-1 on the air, like literally 13 of 14 games in a row. So I always said one of the reasons I do Sharp or Square is because I always felt I never wanted to try to pretend, even though I had a lot of people I knew in odds making. I knew Roxy Roxborough at one point. Didn't know him well, but I knew him in Vegas. Is that I always thought I was better as the mark, and then the audience, like I do Sharp and Square. I'm the Square totally. And this year I was really square on Blazing 5, but I think I have kind of a beat on how to do it. But this year, by the way, Nick, was the worst year I've ever had, and I think some of it was moving the kickoff. That offenses, I took underdogs because I've always taken.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Quarterbacks and points.
You had a bad year because this was the year of the favorite, and any longtime NFL bettor knows the sharp side usually is the underdog. Like not always, but usually. And this was the absolute year of the favorite, which was why our dear friend, the squarest rube I know, Danny Parkins, hit 65%. The year of the favorite. This guy's just picking favorites every week. The guy can't lose. I can't live it down.
He was red hot.
It's unbelievable. Guy could not lose. Makes me so mad.
Has he always been that good at betting?
God, no. The best year of his life by a mile. Hey, give me a break. First year on TV, everyone thinks now he's the dude from he's Al Pacino from Show Me the Money or whatever that movie is. I mean, give me a break. This guy, so annoying. So annoying. Listen, I love him. He's my best friend. I'm happy for him, but no.
I had no idea. I thought he was just a great NFL bettor.
He'll tell you that's the truth and that I'm being unfair and that I'm just jealous. I'll let the audience, you know what, the audience, check back in 5 years and see if he ever duplicates what he just did. He had a great year. Good for him.
By the way, he didn't even create this mythical championship competition until like week 6.
That's the other thing. That's what's such bullshit. It's not like he was like, you know what? I'm new to the network. I'm challenging Nick and Colin. He gets a huge lead on you and me, and then all of a sudden he's wearing gold chains and a throne and calling himself FS1's best handicapper. It's infuriating. Utterly infuriating.
He makes one good prediction, and the next week he's opened up a palm reader business on the corner of 3rd and Main.
Parkins, get out of here.
All right, buddy.
See ya.